Hello, cinephiles, and welcome to Silver Screen Sips, a podcast where two idiots talk about movies. And today is our listeners episode with our very special guest, Laura Cayouette. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm glad you're finally able to come onto the show. We've been trying to make this happen for a long time, and it's finally happening.
You'd have thought it was hard.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yay.
Just a reminder, there are spoilers ahead for movies and TV shows that you may not have seen yet. So just know you've been warned. But before we do jump into today's episode, we're going to do a brief interview with Laura so that you guys can get to know who she is and what she's worked on. So do you want to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself before we ask our questions?
Well, I've been an actor for over 30 years. And I think the thing most people know me from is Django Unchained, where I played Leonardo DiCaprio's sister.
What?
Laura Lee Candy Fitzwillie.
I had no idea.
You did not?
No, I did.
You've been waiting all this time for me. So, yeah, but I've been doing this so long. I was on Friends. Like that's how long I've been doing this. So.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I've been doing that for 30 years. And then I'm also an author. I have 8 books, working on my 9th and 10th books right now.
Oh, wow. And, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then I am also finishing up, I'm also a filmmaker, and I'm finishing up my first documentary. So, and
can you tell us anything about that, or? Sure.
I mean, I've made other movies before, and I even produced a feature before with Quentin Tarantino. This is a totally different thing. This is a documentary that I'm doing in conjunction with a local nonprofit here in New Orleans called VC Pura, which is the Vieux Carré Property Owners and Residents Association. And they do preservation, land usage, all that kind of stuff for the French Quarter. So I am making a documentary about over-tourism and the French Quarter. And over-tourism is a new word. It's only been in the dictionary for a few years, but it means when a place has so many people visiting it, so many more people visiting it than that actually maintain the place, that it becomes unsustainable. And the one that everybody knows about is Venice, Italy. Well, our numbers here are 5 times higher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm making a documentary about that because people don't know it's happening here and don't know what to do when I tell them it's happening here. So
that's really interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of the term, so learn something new every day.
Yeah. And it's actually happening a few places in America. Big Sur is one that is here in our country. There's a few in our country.
Do you have a release date or anything on that yet, or no?
Well, we're hoping to get into the New Orleans Film Festival, but that's, we haven't even submitted yet. So
that would be exciting.
That would be what we'd like to have as a premiere, because it'd be great to have a premiere here in the city, since this is what we're sounding the alarm about.
Well, fingers crossed. I hope it works out. We both do.
Too.
I'll speak for Isaiah.
I agree.
Excellent.
Well, I would like to ask you a question. It's kind of a long one, so bear with me. So in the past, as some of our listeners know, those that have stuck around long enough, we've covered the Kill Bill series, and you appeared in that, apparently, as Rocket, which was a fun little Easter egg for me. You were also in, as you've already mentioned, Django Unchained. That's kind of your more big role that everyone knows you. You were according to your IMDb, you were in Now You See Me as well.
Oh yeah.
And a ton of other movies and shows too. You mentioned Friends. So obviously you've had the opportunity to work with, some amazing directors like Quentin Tarantino and a lot of others. What's it like working with, all these different directors, and have you noticed any significant differences in how they approach directing their films or their TV shows?
All directors are different.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there are some similarities and there are some groupings. And I feel sort of blessed that I fell into a grouping of Quentin and Tony Scott and Sam Raimi. They all have very similar approaches to filmmaking, and they were all madly in love with movies. And that changes what it's like to be on a set,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because in particular, both Quentin and Tony are, well, Tony was, but in any case, they are, their enthusiasm knows no bounds. And as a result, you feel the love of movies the whole time you're working. However, you work like 20-hour days. I mean, it's like brutal.
Oh, you feel it. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're both people who really push the limit of how much a person can take to get a movie made. But you feel so swept up in the love of movies that I don't know. It's a pretty joyful ride. When people say, what was it like to be on Django? I was there for 5 months, and it was the most grueling, fabulous, amazing, difficult. It was the best job, but it had, high highs and low lows.
Yeah. As long as you're passionate about it, it's worth it.
Well, that's how it feels to me. And there are other people who feel differently about their job. And some people, are in it for different reasons than I am. And so they are measuring it a different way. But for me, I grew up loving movies and seeing them as highly therapeutic. And so I feel blessed that I got to be part of the movie making industry that is the part that's filled with cinephiles who love movies as much as I do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's refreshing when you come across people like that. It's unfortunately, I feel like, cause I work mainly in, the advertising and kind of commercial side of production. It's definitely, I feel like our side is a little less of the passionate side and more of the, it's a job kind of thing. It's job's a job. But occasionally, you do come across those kind of people that really do love what they're doing. And it's like, it brings back a little life into it.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just a totally different experience. I haven't gotten to work yet with Martin Scorsese, although I did go out for Flower Moon, but I have heard that he is also, just famously in love with movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, although he seems to be more coming from an intellectual space about it instead of a passionate space about it. His passion's no less deep, but from what I understand, because he's a film student as opposed to a cinephile, it's, like Quentin learned about movies in a video store. Very different environment than NYU,
Yeah, for sure.
Or USC or what, like it's a different thing than going to Quentin has an 8th grade education. He didn't go to college. So it's a different way that he's loving movies.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Book smart versus street smart.
Yeah.
Well, Quentin is every kind of smart there is, but he didn't, our education system isn't for everybody.
Right.
So, I mean, he's all the kinds of smart, but it was in a public school system that did not know. He got a big old brain.
You can handle him.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, you can see it just in his work alone that he knows what he's doing.
For sure. And I guess he's going to do it one more time. So
yes, that's what we've heard. Yes. Now, Isaiah, I know you also had a question.
I do. Yeah. So, just like Beth mentioned and how you've been doing this for 30 years, you have obviously worked on different types of sets. So you have TV sets, short films I noticed, and movies and TV movies. I was curious. Obviously, Dig has a very large range of budgets and resources that these type of productions can have. My question was, I guess, have you been on set and realized and people are trying to work out something, even though maybe a smaller set doesn't have the resources a larger production would have to solve kind of the same issue, and how creative, how they had to creatively get out of that or solve that problem? Do you have any examples that you may have witnessed or how they would tackle it?
It's interesting. I think a lot of people don't think about this, that the biggest difference between a big budget movie and a low budget movie is problem solving. When you have a lot of money, then whenever a problem appears, you tend to just throw money at it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have money, then when a problem appears, you throw duct tape and ingenuity at it. So you end up, at the end of the day, the person sitting in the audience with a bucket of popcorn on their lap might not notice the difference. But I do think that on a smaller budget movie or television show or whatever project, there can be a thing that happens between especially in the crew, where there's a camaraderie, a we got this kind of attitude that gets you through. Because like the movie I produced with Quentin was a $3 million movie, which to some people would be a lot of money, and to other people is just no money. And, it depended on what we were trying to purchase as to who thought what, like if we're trying to get Dennis Hopper and David Carradine on our set, then we have no money. But if we're trying to, pay for food, we had enough money to pay for it. The food, like that was okay. So yeah. So it's especially I would say with the way things get built, the way things, all that behind the scenes stuff, those guys have to be super duper, like whether it's wardrobe, all those people, they have to be super duper resourceful when there's no money.
Oh yeah.
Whereas when there's money, they can just go shopping. Yeah. So it's a different vibe below the line for sure. Above the line, it's not as big a difference to me. I know there are people who care about trailers and I don't know, all that, the perk stuff.
Writers.
Yeah. And I'm not in it for the perks. So I don't so much notice or care when whether my trailer is smaller or whether, that's just not as interesting to me. But I do know that as a producer, I will tell you that there are some people you cannot get if you cannot provide for them an environment that they're willing to leave their house for.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It affects everything. But I think the thing that people overlook is that it's not necessarily a negative effect to have less money. It can be a positive effect to have less money because your crew tends to congeal more and become more of a unit that's a problem-solving unit.
That is
well put.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, I can't add on to that because you summed up exactly what I was thinking.
Well, and it's about hat wearing too. The smaller the budget, the more hats you wear, and that's even the actors. Actors, generally speaking, don't have to throw, they don't generally speaking have to help with anything because we're not in any other union and we're not allowed to touch anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're on a low budget thing, even the actors might end up wearing 3 or 4 hats.
My actor/script.
Well, I mean, script supervising is definitely an area where the lower the budget, the more I start paying attention to how many times I took a sip from my own teacup or how many, all that stuff, because I don't count on, because the person, they might have a script supervisor, but it might be an intern and this is their first job, Yeah. So, and I did one movie where they hired 3 theater actors. Was it 2 or 3 theater actors who had never done film before and assigned each one of us that was sort of the name actors a actor to teach how to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, how to do blocking and coverage and things that are just a little different for camera than for, they were all very practiced theater actors. They were certainly good at their jobs, but they
totally different.
Yeah, they didn't know what coverage. They didn't even know that term. And so we had to walk them through, but I was happy to do that. I thought it was very team building.
Yeah. It's a great experience for, I think both parties.
Yeah. And every time you make a project of any kind, it's always like going away to movie camp.
Yeah.
And so when you are assigned, somebody to mentor or whatever, that's just another thing that happened at movie camp,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I like it. I think it's fun. I think I enjoy apprenticeship and mentorship and all the other ships that brought me here. So I like giving them, spreading that, paying that forward, as they say.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you for answering our questions. I guess we'll hop into our first movie. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we could start with that. So we'll start with Isaiah. You can kind of go first.
All right.
So that this way Laura kind of gets an idea of how we do it. Basically, we kind of just explain the movie and then our thoughts on it. And also shout out to the listener who suggested the movie.
Okie doke.
So Isaiah, what did you have?
So I have Whiplash. I would just say we can shout out Olivia L for suggesting this movie. And
thank you, Olivia.
It's such a thank you for giving me another chance to watch this movie.
Any excuse, honestly.
Any excuse. Such a God, I love it. So just for anybody who has not seen this movie, Whiplash is basically about a my gosh, kind of weird. Basically, it's about this man named Andrew Neiman. He is an up and coming and ambitious jazz drummer, and he goes to Schaefer, which is like the top music school in the country, and he is trying to get into a studio band, which is ran by J.K. Simmons, aka who plays Terrence Fletcher, who is like this terrifying, like I guess you call him all knowing. He's very amazing. Like he's the top person you want to be in like with in order to be like the best of the best at the school. Except he gets a little crazy because his methods are very in your face, ruthless, unorthodox, everying.
He would make you work for 20 hours.
No sleep, no drinks, straight.
Yep.
But basically, he kind of pushes Neiman to the like the brink of whatever of his abilities and like basically insanity because it's a very intense movie. And who would think that with jazz?
Yeah, but I mean, it's J.K. Simmons, so what do you expect?
J.K. Simmons ended up winning like I'm pretty sure the Golden Globe for his performance, which well deserved. My God.
Yeah. Now, were you
but basically that's the movie. But basically that's the plot of the movie. Now this is directed by Damien Chazelle, and this was his first movie, like his first feature movie.
That I did not know.
It's based off of like a short film. It's like a 20-minute short film, which is also on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube.
I have seen that.
The short film. It also stars J.K. Simmons, and so it's kind of like a proof of concept basically for the main movie. But like everything they expanded upon in that short film, my God, nailed it. But basically, a few thoughts I had. I love it when I have a movie that I don't have many notes to share because it's basically like it's just perfect. Everything, like every topic that you would like to talk about, they just nailed it.
Yeah.
Like from the writing to the obviously the music to the acting, of course, nailed it across the board. I think the opening of the movie is a very good opening to introduce us both Neiman, who is like his ambition of being like he's sitting there. He doesn't have to be. It's like 3 a.m. he's sitting there drumming and he's like trying his best to get as fast as he possibly can while drumming. So it introduces his ambition. And then it introduces Fletcher, where he comes in. And it's like immediately is just a commanding presence of just being like, "Show me your rudiments. Why are you stopping?" Like just a commanding presence, and it's all within the first 15 minutes, and it just shows both of their characters right out, and then the rest of the movie just carries it. And I think that's just like a superb introduction. It doesn't waste your time. It tells you how it is, and then it keeps going. Like if you didn't catch it, you're not going to catch it. But you better have gotten it. Which a lot of details in this movie, it does it. It doesn't really like hold your hand. It will just straightforward tell you it. And if you missed it, you missed it. You just got to keep going.
Oh yeah.
And from the beginning, you can also tell this movie is because Damien Chazelle, I believe he went to school for music as well, and then he somehow got into filmmaking. But it definitely shows his love for music, especially jazz, because that's what this whole thing is based around. So it definitely shows it's a love letter to jazz, and he's probably slipped a few things that he knew and that's probably happened to him in there. I can tell you that. but I do think it's interesting that, like, you think jazz, you think like, low bass, like real slow, like rhythm blues, things like freestyle stuff.
I'm
You
sorry,
don't think
I'm
of it
in New
being like a
Orleans.
very
I don't think
cutthroat
anything
thriller.
you just said. I don't know what people think of jazz.
I
Y'all
know,
are
like, I know
speaking
I'm not
some
from New Orleans.
foreign language. And nothing
So,
that,
like, to
that
me, I
people
don't think
call
of- I don't
jazz
think of
do
a
I
cutthroat thing.
recognize. It's very weird. No,
Yeah.
it's very weird because I think when people think of jazz, they think of New York jazz. And of course, nobody in New Orleans is thinking of New York jazz when we think of jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, those are probably very different. Like, I mean, this movie takes place in New York, so it definitely is the New York of
Yeah.
jazz.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the thing. That's definitely the vibe they went for.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I don't think when they're doing this type of jazz, it's not as cutthroat. Like, you think, it's very calm and stuff. This is not as cutthroat as you expect it to be, especially, then you have like one of the climaxes being a car crash.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Fletcher's character, like the way he like goes about. I mean, he's very straightforward in the movie. He even tells you like why his motivations are, like why he's doing what he does, and like why he's such an ass to everybody, and,
Yeah.
and like why he wants to push everybody to like the absolute limit. And even though some people may not agree, and I don't know. I just like Beth. You'll know what I mean. Our professor, he would like to think he's this kind of person,
Yeah.
and he would act like that kind of person, but without any of the like reasoning.
It just
behind
doesn't
it.
work. It just wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
No, like,
I agree.
do I agree with what
We will
Fletcher?
not say his name, but we both know who we're talking about.
Yeah. Now, do I agree with Fletcher's methods? Probably not. I definitely wouldn't be able to take it. That I would lose my mind. I mean, I didn't take it with our professor either. So, like, I don't know. It really depends.
The
I don't
movie,
think it's,
though.
Yeah.
The question of the movie
Yeah.
is about that. Is that kind of training? Is that valid if it gets you to become amazing?
Yeah.
It is
I guess
true.
it's in this. I guess it's in the sense that you have to like ask. I mean, it's all, in my opinion, it's all subjective because it's really, how much can you handle personally? Like if you're in that situation, because like I take, as much as I hate it, I do better when someone is yelling at me, if that makes sense. Because I've done, because I've done MMA training in the past, and I do a lot better when someone is telling me like, you're not trying hard enough. You're not even, like stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that pushes me past my limit and it pushes me to get better. But that's just me. Another person might not like that. And someone might take that a little too serious and, it might hurt their feelings or something. So I think it's a very subjective.
Go further. I'll say the straight up abuse, just like that character is abusive and illegally so. Yeah. And I have been mentored by, tutored by, taught by, worked with, whatever, some extremely abusive people. But I think the question is that if it makes you better, I don't know, am I living in my own matrix where I'm choosing these mentors and I'm choosing people who are going to beat me up because I need to get better and that's something that I respond to? I don't know. But that's what the movie is asking. Is it okay to teach like that if the result is somebody becoming a genius?
Yeah.
And also the sub question to that is, would they become a genius anyway if you didn't beat on them?
If you didn't push them. Yeah. That's true too. And it's one of those questions where it's like, I don't know. It's one of those, everyone is going to have, I think, because I think overall, I think the general consensus, I'm going to speak for everyone out there, that the way he taught was, like we said, abusive. But the other question is, where does that line begin for certain people? Like where it becomes abusive and not just pushing someone, because I feel like that's where the answers might vary more so. Well, that's also going to change during which era you ask it. If you ask somebody, I mean, honestly, things change. I have a friend who's a ballerina and she's Russian trained. And what that means is that she was beaten since she was 3 years old with a stick. And she is also, though, such a great ballerina that Baryshnikov used to stand in the doorway and watch her take class. Oh, wow.
So I don't know. What do you say? I mean, is it okay to beat somebody from the age 3 with a stick if it makes them somebody that Baryshnikov thinks is amazing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tight line to walk.
Well, it's a great movie for that reason, is because it doesn't answer the question. It just keeps making you ask it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I love the subject.
I'll never have it answered.
I love ambiguity. I love those.
Yeah.
Also, just the ending. We call it the soundtrack to this movie. Great.
Oh yeah.
The fact we call it the ending. The whole the last 20 minutes, the entire ending. I don't want to call it a monologue. I'm not sure what you would call it. It felt like a monologue because of it was just so intense, and you can tell everything is. It wasn't like a moment everything was leading up to, but it also was. But then it just was so intense, and you can tell that his drive was finally just nah, I'm going for it, and then it just everything came to a head, and it still does not answer the question. But you can tell the characters after this, it did answer the question for themselves, but not you. You have now figured it out. Yeah. No, I gave it a I think I gave it a 5 out of 5.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that's 5 out of 5.
That is rightfully so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've also given it a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, if I remember right. It's a great movie. Yeah. Great choice.
Thanks, Olivia.
I might rewatch it, and it's not even my movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we continue on, we would like to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's episode, Shaker and Spoon. It's a monthly subscription service that gives you bar quality recipes and ingredients designed by award-winning mixologists. And their latest box, The Ballad of Irish Whiskey, features incredible Irish whiskey cocktail recipes, my personal favorite. If you'd like,
French here, sorry.
I'm also Irish, so it's a little bit of both. If you'd like your very own box to drink along with us, then you can head over to shakerandspoon.com and use our promo code SIPS10 to get $10 off your first subscription. Again, that is promo code SIPS10, SIPS10, to get $10 off. Thank you, Shaker and Spoon. Man, it's a mouthful. Okay, Laura, would you like to give it a go with your film?
Well, I have to preface this by saying that I don't come to this movie with no history. I actually was shooting Django in 2012, and 2 other movies were shooting. Well, there were actually a bunch of things shooting in New Orleans at that time, but 2 of them approached me to work, and one of them was Now You See Me. And they had wanted me to work for 3 days, and I couldn't get 3 days off of Django. So they changed it to a 1-day part, and I did it. And then the other movie was this one that I'm about to review. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And, it was meant to be.
Yeah. I auditioned for it, and we got into talks about my schedule. And Django wasn't able to make it work with I think I would have had to do it in Baton Rouge, which is an hour and a half. And anyway, it wasn't going to work. So I didn't end up getting to do it, but it was the Melissa Leo part that I was being considered for. And the reason I wanted to do it was because I wanted to be able to say the line at the end to Tom Cruise where I say, "I am your God." That was, I wanted to do the whole iconic movie. So it says, "I created you, Jack. I am your God." So yes, I wanted to be able to say that line to Tom Cruise. I thought that'd be a fun thing to add to my career, but I wasn't able to do it. So okay.
Sorry. Also, this movie I never mentioned was suggested for you by Ellis H, is our listener for this movie.
Hi, Ellis H.
So thank you, Alice.
So, all right. Well, so this is Oblivion. And I really like sci-fi, and not always, depends on the type, but this is the type that I usually like. I like anything that does mind-bendy stuff. And so there's a lot of things about this movie that I like, but ultimately it falls a little flat. And I'm not entirely sure what to credit that to, but it's a guy. Tom Cruise is playing a guy who, he's charming and fit and all those things that we love about Tom Cruise. He rides a motorcycle and does high falls, and, it's all his own stunts. And so it's all the good stuff that I paid my money. I want to see my Tom Cruise moments. They're all there. Yeah. And his character is a clone. I think he's number 52. So his character is a clone number 52, and he is paired with a character played by Andrea, is it Riseborough or Reesborough? And they are partnered. And they're partnered in every way. Like they shower together, they sleep together, they work together. And the whole question of the movie over and over and over is, are you an effective team? And they keep checking in, are you an effective team? And they do it enough times that it makes you wonder, what happens if they're not an effective team? And we find out what happens. But before that, we first find out that we're in, I think it's like 2077, I think, or something. Or maybe that's when the memory wipe was, or what. Anyway, it's in the future, post-apocalyptic. I don't know why all futures are post-apocalyptic. I guess we know something we just don't want to admit.
We're doomed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it starts out really like romantic and mysterious and dreamy. And Tom Cruise with this not his ideal, not effective team partner, this other woman. And he says it's like a dream, but it's more like a memory. And so there's this whole like mystery going on from the very beginning of the movie of like, who's that girl? And what are these dreams or memories of? He's a clone. But his partner doesn't question things, and he just goes through his days. So he goes in this post-apocalyptic world. He's got a job that he and his partner are doing where they are supposed to be protecting and maintaining these things that are turning water into energy using fusion. I did like this idea. We had won the war, but we lost the planet. Yeah. So the post-apocalypse has to do with that. We did win the war. We dominated, but we blew up our home in order to do it. It's like,
at what cost?
Yes, exactly. So anyway, there are all these efforts to humanize this clone guy, the Tom Cruise clone guy. Has a bobblehead in his very high-tech copter thing. He has this bobblehead that it looks like Elvis, but he calls it Bob. And I don't know if that's because it has a bobblehead. But in any case, he has that. He finds a plant in a tin can, and, it's a desolate planet. Everything's white, by the way. They all wear white. Everything, the house is white. Everything's white. And except the bad guys who are in black. And don't get me started on the racist elements of that idea. But anyway, so there's this plant in a tin can, and it's this bright green plant with a little flower in it. And so he brings home the plant to his effective teammate, and she throws it off the balcony. And when I say off the balcony, I mean into oblivion. Like their balcony is in the sky. So she throws it into just
pun intended.
Go away. Yeah. And then seduces him because he's pretty sad that she did that. Anyway, then she seduces him and he forgets. And then we see him fly into this lush canyon that's like this hidden oasis, and he has like binoculars and that's a different thing. He has this vision all the time of seeing these, the binoculars at the top of the Empire State Building. He keeps seeing a vision of the binoculars at the top of the Empire State Building. Anyway, that's the dream with the girl, with the other girl. Yeah. Anyway, so he's in this lush canyon, and he's wearing jeans, which are a color. So like suddenly it's like Wizard of Oz, where we've gone from black and white to this like colorful world where there's water and a cabin, and he's wearing jeans and flannel, and Led Zeppelin is playing. And, it's very, very like
paradise.
Yeah. It's like this little used to be world. So anyway, he's out doing he leaves the oasis and he's out doing his job, and he finds the dream woman, the woman of his dreams, in a pod when he's out fighting the bad guys. And so he brings the pod home. And I'm thinking, honey, she threw the plant. It was just a tiny flower in a can. And she threw that into Oblivion. You're bringing home an entire human girl. You know? How do you think this is going to go? You think
she's going to do with that?
Right, exactly. So anyway, it doesn't go very well for him once he brings the girl home. But yeah. And
shocker.
In the end, there's this thing that the effective teammate goes through where at first she lies for him and covers up for him. And then she catches him with the girl of his dreams and she becomes a woman scorned instead of like a effective partner. She becomes hurt. And so when the Melissa Leo character checks in and says, "Are you an effective team?" They're staring at each other through a glass door. And she just looks at him and goes, "No, we are not effective." And now you're waiting for, you know, like what's going to happen now?
What's going to happen?
So bad things happen. And there's this whole thing about that he meets another of his own clones, like clone 49 or whatever. And that clone ends up taking over for a while clone 52 is injured. And so clone 48 takes over for a while. And yeah, lots of spoiler alerts here. Clone 48 impregnates the dream girl.
Oh, wow.
and then later clone 52 reappears to parent said child. So that it's a very strange, you know, that's I would love to give this, you know, really high marks because it has a lot of thought put into it, but it feels like everything almost gets there. Like the thing about him humanizing himself with the, you know, Led Zeppelin and flannel and jeans and whatever, you know, there's an attempt to have us connect with him and feel his, I don't know, like feel what he's going through of wanting to be in a human experience when we're, you know, in a post-apocalyptic world. And there's this whole thing. The bad guys turn out to be the good guys. Morgan Freeman, who is doing his best job of being Orpheus in Matrix, is like the head of the bad guys / good guys. And he says the reason he knew that this clone was going to be special and different is because this clone picked up a book and started reading it. And, you know, so the things that they pick to say that we're human are bobbleheads, books, plants in a tin can, and Led Zeppelin. And hey, I'm all for it, but I did feel like it was a little bit flat, just a little.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was something a little.
Perhaps.
Yeah, there was something too paint by number about the humanizing.
Yeah.
And it's too bad because there's a lot of clever twists. There's a lot of, you know, you shouldn't trust anything I'm saying because I didn't do the movie and I wanted to. I wanted to say, I am your God. I created you, Jack. I am your God. So you shouldn't trust anything I have to say negative about this movie.
She's biased.
But yeah, I would say that now for me, a five stars is, you know, I'm comparing that to like Gone with the Wind and, you know, yeah, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Once Upon a Time in any name a location. So, you know, I'm comparing it with some of the best movies of all time. And so against that scale where 5 is a best movie of all time, then I have to go into like a 3.75 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Because there's nothing wrong
given
with
your
it.
description, I would say that's fair.
There's nothing wrong with the movie. It just never soars. It never fully takes flight. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't reach its full potential.
Yes. It's missing that Laura Cayouette factor.
Exactly.
No, it is
that
missing
would
something.
Be a 5.
So no, it is missing something. And even if I were in it, it is missing something. And it's hard to put your finger on because it really does check the boxes. But that I think is what's the problem. I think it feels like it's checking boxes.
Yeah. I remember watching this when it came out. So I was much younger, and this was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, we were talking about it before we started recording, before you joined. I was like, I don't remember a single thing about this movie. And it all just came back to me when you started talking about it. I was like, wow, I forgot how crazy that movie is.
I mean, it's kind of, you want it to be fascinating because it has a lot of really good ideas, but it just doesn't
And I mean,
gel.
it's like exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ellis.
Thank you, Ellis,
for that suggestion. Yes, we got a fun little backstory to that one.
Yes. Well, when I saw it on the list, I was like, I think I have to do it.
You had to. It was calling your name.
Yeah.
For our last movie, I picked The Menu, which was suggested by Adonis. So thank you, Adonis, for the suggestion. I've been meaning to watch this movie for a long time. So it was a great excuse to finally get down and actually sit down and watch it.
Like closing my ears. I still haven't seen it. So I feel like going while you talk.
Oh, no. Oh, no. You haven't seen. Okay, I will try not to spoil it to the best of my ability. I think I can do that. Here's how I will. I'll use the letterboxd explanation. How about that to summarize the movie? Because that should not spoil it. So, The Menu, which stars Anya Taylor-Joy, which I have a love-hate relationship with. Amazing actress. She and Nicholas Hoult go to a coastal island to eat at an exclusive restaurant hosted by Chef Slowick, which is played by Ralph. Oh, I'm going to butcher his last name.
Ray Fiennes?
Ralph Fiennes?
It's Ray Fiennes.
Ray?
Don't ask me. That's apparently how it's pronounced.
Oh, okay. My bad. I'm so sorry. He is the chef, and he's prepared a lavish menu with some shocking surprises. That is the log line for the movie. Now, I'm really tiptoeing here for Laura's sake.
No, you don't have to tiptoe. I get it, but look, it's my fault I hadn't seen it yet.
It's okay. I think I can do this and still get all my notes down. Okay. So going into this, I had no idea what the film was actually about. I thought it was like a comedy for some reason, which it has its comedic moments. It's kind of, if you want to call it a dark comedy, it could be a dark comedy. But it was definitely not the genre I was expecting. And because I wasn't expecting it, it was shockingly pleasant, I guess you could say, for me, because it's right up my alley of what I like. I also feel that I've never related to a character more than Margot. That's the main character. That's Anya Taylor-Joy's character. She's just, doesn't take any bullshit. She's just very rooted in reality compared to all the other characters. Just very like, no, what? We're not doing this kind of thing. And that, I love that. I was just like, yes, this is a character I feel like I can really relate to in this whole movie, because the whole movie is just crazy, outrageous ridiculousness. The whole time the whole movie, I was like, what the, pardon my French, what the fuck? I was like, no, and I remember at one point it was during the climax of the movie, I had to pause it. And oh my God, I thought about it all day. I had to pause it because I had to go to work.
Oh no.
And I thought about it all day. Yeah, I know. I timed that poorly.
Really poorly.
I was like, well, because I thought it was going to be like a chill movie, and it wasn't. And so I was like, oh, I could just pause it. And I paused it right during like the biggest moment. And I was thinking about it all day. And then I got home and I finished it. And it was very satisfying to finish it. I was like, it was eating at me.
Eating at you?
Oh, yeah. I see what you did there. Yeah. So, like I said, the whole story, the whole plot is kind of ridiculous to some regard. The whole concept is, a little far-fetched, but if you kind of, and like, so are the characters, it's very like, I don't know, for anyone who's seen Knives Out or Glass Onion, it's very similar to those characters where it's like, okay, nobody is actually like this, right? Like no one actually acts like this. But if you like lean into it, it's a fun watch. Like if you lean into the idea and the characters and be like, okay, this is the world that they live in. This is how they act. It's very enjoyable.
But you do know that as far as like what's happening in the real world with real people that you're comparing this to, is you do have to remember that wasn't Armie Hammer in one of those movies you listed, and Armie Hammer is now a confessed cannibal.
You know,
what a weird thing to be saying. Like that's a true statement.
You know, you make a good point.
So they're not that far-fetched. You just don't spend a lot of time in LA.
Exactly. So here's the thing. I'm gonna not spoil the ending, and this is gonna be the best way. And those who have seen the movie know exactly what I'm talking about. Those who have not, this might entice you. Well, not really. It won't entice you, but it won't spoil it. I think the ending was good. I enjoyed the ending, but I did think it was a little cheesy. Yeah. That's my hint. That's my spoiler-free ending there.
Okay.
Those who have never seen the movie are like, what is she going on about? But it will make sense when you've seen it.
Well, I'm very pro-cheese. So.
Yes. But I gave it a 4 out of 5. It was really good. Maybe I would have given it a 5 if I didn't have to pause it, but that's on me. That's on me totally. No, I'm kidding. Definitely really good. I think Anya did an amazing job as her character. That Ray, not Ralph.
Rafe.
F-E.
I've heard.
You're saying Rafe.
Like rake, but with
Ray.
Rafe.
Rafe. Okay. See, I've been hearing Ray. I was like, how do you get Ray? Okay, that makes more sense. God, I'm embarrassing myself. So Rafe, he did a fantastic job. Kind of as the antagonist within the film. He is so good. And yeah, I mean, it was just a really well done. I think the whole cast was really well thought out, and everyone did a really good job. And it was very, from beginning to end, just very like on the edge of your seat, what's going to happen next kind of a feeling. And that I love those kind of movies, like a thriller type thing. And yeah, it was a fun watch. And also the editing is very well done. It's very kind of has its own quirky touch to it. This isn't really spoiling it. Each act of the movie is called like, the first dish or the first course. And it's like the name of the course. And then for that whole act, it kind of is like themed around that dish. It's very, I'm kind of butchering how it's done, but when you, man, there's so many puns in this. This is crazy. But yeah, it's like, it's like, and then in those moments, that's where the dark humor kind of comes in. It's really well done. I can't believe it took me this long to watch it.
I know. And that's why I'm saying you shouldn't even you shouldn't even spare me, because it's my fault that I haven't seen it.
I know. But if I were you, I would be so upset if someone spoiled it to me, because it's definitely a movie you got to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah. You need to watch it, and then you can email us and be like, oh my God, I saw it. It was amazing.
Fromage. Cheese.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, 4 out of 5. Thank you again, Adonis, for finally making me watch this. I'm probably going to go suggest it to other people too, because I think it's a great movie.
Well, and Ralph Fiennes was actually huge in the 90s. I guess his name has fallen out of favor, but he was. Quiz Show was the first time I ever saw him. He was really terrific in that, and then he did Schindler's List, and then he did The English Patient. And so that was sort of.
Don't get mad at me, but that's another movie I need to see, is Schindler's
List. What? Well, that's a lighthearted comedy.
Listen, I haven't
that's
seen it.
Rough.
Listen, we've had a whole conversation on Schindler's List, because we were talking about, this is a real throwback to one of our old episodes, but we had a whole conversation about, what defines a coming of age movie? Because there's so many movies nowadays that get defined as coming of age when they're not really coming of age. And we define Schindler's List technically as a coming of age film in the most messed up way possible. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing where like, it's because some examples, it was like, because we Googled, coming of age films, and some of them were like ridiculous. We're like, that's not a coming of age film. So like, we might as well put Schindler's List on there. It was like, oh my God.
Well, I had read the book. Richard Dreyfuss actually gave me the book in the 90s and said that that Spielberg was going to be making the movie. And so I read the book and I remember how vivid the little girl in the red coat was when I read the book. And then when you watch the movie, it's like Spielberg knew that. Spielberg knew that every single person that read the book was going to remember the little girl in the red coat, because it's a black and white movie, and there's only one time that you see color other than his need to put bookend happy endings on movies. But anyway, is this little girl with the red coat. So yeah, and that movie, I was actually taking tickets at a movie theater in LA when that movie came out, and total strangers would come up to me after the movie and tell me like, oh, my entire family died in the Holocaust kind of things. And they're just total strangers who come up and dump their whole grief story on me. And the movie was in the theater for like 6 months. So for like 6 months, I had total strangers coming up and telling me these horrific stories. It was really, what an incredible movie insofar as it allowed a lot of people a way to process their own grief and their family history, their family story.
Yeah. I know the premise of the whole film at this point is more of a matter of like sitting and actually watching it. But, from what I do know of it, I'm like, I got to mentally prepare.
Well, because there's so many movies that are terrific, but when movies are based on a true story, then you have to deal with the added thing of,
oh yeah,
in the good case of like a movie that's about something amazing that happened, or a person who's amazing, or which Schindler's List is about a person who we're going to go ahead and call amazing, but really he was kind of a crappy guy.
Yeah,
he just did this one amazing thing.
Yeah.
So. But when you deal with movies that are about real stuff, you don't just feel the feelings of the movie, you feel the feelings of the real stuff.
Yeah. Those are the ones that, I enjoy those kind of movies personally, just because it feels like more emotion is tied to it.
I don't know, because it depends. Like I saw Barbie when it came out and I am still thinking about it.
Oh yeah, those two.
Seriously. Because Barbie for me is a movie that's about all the many ways that the 52% of the population have been held down and back and whatever. And so there's a lot in that movie that I was like, afterward, that I had to process and think about and look at and,
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, movies hit different people differently. And sometimes fantasy can spark stuff about your reality. And sometimes reality stories can spark fantasy. But Schindler's List is just straight up hardcore yikes storytelling, So yeah, it's a terrible story and you just strap in and handle it.
I'm gonna have to take a day. Yeah. Take a day.
Yeah.
Prepare. Well, does anyone else have anything else they want to add before we sign off for today?
Well, I look forward to seeing the menu.
Yes, please watch it. Please. I need to rewatch Whiplash, and I might as well also rewatch Oblivion while I'm at it, because I haven't seen that in like 10 years.
Oblivion, like I said, there's so many movies that are like, they stick with you, like they stay with you a long time. And Oblivion is one of those ones where you just said it's good, not great, because it doesn't quite stick with you. There's just like a missing element. But yeah, certainly could have been. It's right there. It has all the ingredients. It's just like a little underbaked or something,
Missed its mark. A little underbaked. Another menu pun.
Well, whereas Whiplash, that movie is like relentless.
It's literal. Gives you actual whiplash.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for your movie suggestions. Again, thank you, Adonis, Ellis, and Olivia. You guys are awesome.
Great names too.
Oh, amazing names. And of course, thank you, Laura, for joining us today.
Well, I had fun. Thank you very much for
glad it finally happened.
Yes. Yes. What has it been, like a year we've been trying to make this happen?
Feels like it. do you have any like social media platforms you'd like to kind of shout out or anything?
I'm on Facebook and whatever they're calling Twitter today. And I recently joined Instagram. And so, yeah, I know. And I'm not a person who loves social media, but I have to admit that Instagram, I kind of get it. Like I'm like, no wonder people lose hours to this because I have like over, I don't know, I have like 15,000 followers on Twitter or whatever. And I only have like 800 on Instagram, because I just joined, but I really enjoy it. Like it's maybe I'm blessed, but it's upbeat
simple.
And all of my feed is all like affirmations and people saying you can do it, and so I find it I don't know, I find it really fun. So I'm new to Instagram, but I'm loving Instagram and wish I had more people to interact with. So that's my new thing.
Well, we just followed you on Instagram, so you got another follower.
I have a website.
Right there.
I have lauracayouette.com, and that's where I usually try and keep all, like that's where you can find my books and my movies and my photos and my, all that stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes, definitely go check out some of her work and go give her a follow. Boost that Instagram.
Yeah.
Also, please feel free to send in more movie suggestions you'd like us to watch and review for our upcoming listeners episodes. We do one at the end of every season. And you can send those in at silverscreensips@gmail.com. And of course, if you don't follow us already, then you can also follow us on Instagram so you can get any and all updates regarding the show, upcoming guests, and any other information we have. Next week is season 17, which is insane. And the results are finally in from the poll that we posted as to what to watch next. And it was actually a pretty close call. It was 60 and 40%. 60%, the winner is Narnia. Sorry, Isaiah. No Twilight. Thank God. I'm so happy. I'm going to avoid Twilight for as long as I can.
And I'm going to put Twilight on there for the next 10 seasons until I win.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. But yeah, Narnia, we will start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe next week. So we will see you guys in season 17.
I think I still have it on DVD.
Oh my God.